So The View had a debate about Joe Biden here, and I wanted to play this for you because I think it shows the brick wall that you run into when you're a Democrat or a liberal or you're on the left in general, and you start to like question what we're actually doing here by having Joe Biden be the representative of the party. And this is interesting. So let me play it for you, and we'll break it down as we go here. You're going to have Alyssa Farah is going to sort of question the other host about how strong is Biden? Really? I mean, is he really that strong? He's sort of like his brain doesn't work. Are we sure this is the way we want to go? And it is just, again, it's like talking to a brick wall. You run into a brick wall, and then you also are talking to the brick wall. So let's watch, and we'll break it down as we go.
I actually agree with him. I think a generic Democrat would do better against
Give me
Trump.
a name.
Gretchen Whitmer, honestly,
No.
All right, just to point out real quick, this isn't really debatable. We have the poll numbers on it, and they're overwhelming. They're not close. They're not within the margin of error. We've seen it. A generic Democrat beats Trump by double digits. Biden is currently losing to Trump in the average by about 2 points. So it's not like she brings up, I think a generic Democrat would do better. And they're like, no. It's like, what do you mean no? You're just not familiar with the empirical evidence that exists on this. Can the polls be off? Sure. Are they off that much? 15-point difference? No, it's just not the case. And by the way, it works the other way too. That a generic Republican would crush Biden. A generic Democrat would crush Trump. A generic Republican would crush Biden. Again, this is every piece of empirical evidence screams this from the mountaintops. Okay, let's continue.
I disagree with you here, Sonny, because you guys ask me all the time, well, you can't support Trump. I will not support Trump, but why aren't you just backing Biden? I'm worried Biden's going to lose to Trump. I don't feel like, I don't think that we're recognizing, I don't think that we're recognizing in 2020 when he beat Donald Trump, a potato could have beat Donald Trump. We were in a global pandemic. The economy was in free fall.
But you know what? A potato could not have beat him.
Millions of people voted for him.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because the one thing that Joe Biden knows is he knows how to run the government.
Could a potato have beaten Trump in 2020? Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, Bernie certainly would have beat Trump. I think he would have beat him in 2016 and definitely would have beat him in 2020 as well. But yeah, that was an anti-Trump election. Too much craziness, too much drama. He mismanaged COVID colossally, so he was going to get the blame. No matter what. And they're sort of downplaying that idea that, like, really, this was an anti-Trump election, and you almost could have had anybody in that scenario against Trump. I mean, I think it's a difficult thing to beat Trump in 2016. I think 2020, not nearly as difficult. And that point of, like, Joe Biden knows how to run the government, bro. Whoopi, what does that mean? What does that mean? Like, I would love to ask these people, like, give me the policies that you like that Biden did. Right? Give me the policies and let's talk it out. Let's get into the specifics here. I hate these broad, vague, generalized, like, he knows how to run the government. Well, yeah, part of running the government is giving billions of dollars to Israel as they committed genocide. Do you like that part of running the government too? Is that one you support? So, like, it's just too vague. All right, let's continue.
And there was nobody else in the pike. And to come out and say, get another candidate, when?
Well, and to be honest, it's not going to happen.
No, so why even start that conversation?
Because we think Trump is going to win, and we're warning everybody, hey, while we still can, maybe we should have another candidate. Now, look, in defense of, like, the Whoopi position here, it's like, Biden crushed in New Hampshire, Biden crushed in South Carolina. This thing is functionally over for all intents and purposes, right? But, from my perspective, it's like a warning. It's like, I think this is the wrong strategy. I think this is the wrong way to go. I really do. But they take it. To be fair, this girl is right-wing, so, like, they view her concern trolling over Biden as, like, not really genuine. You know what I mean? So, and I get that, but you have plenty of people on the left saying the exact same thing. And it's not concern trolling. It's legit and it's sincere. And, by the way, even though Biden won in a crushing fashion in South Carolina in the primary, it was 4% of registered voters who showed up. So that's not a powerful showing, right? That's not powerful at all. That's a warning sign for a general that, like, hey, maybe he can't get the turnout that he needs in order to win.
people understand how frustrated Americans are right now, and rightly or wrongly, that falls at the feet of the commander-in-chief. If they feel like the country is not going a better direction, if the economy is inarguably doing better, but people aren't feeling the impact yet, I'm just telling you, I don't want to wake up on Election Day and Donald Trump won because of Joe Biden's ego, and they couldn't step aside and say we need another.
You know what? Wait, let me push back on that.
Don't. Yeah, oh, go ahead.
Well,
baby.
the reason I say it is I actually don't think President Biden running is his ego. I actually believe deep down he sees Donald Trump coming and knows he's done it once and he's going to do it again. For me, knowing him, it's a gut feeling. I feel it's a little more selfless than selfish.
I mean, do I think that Joe Biden sincerely believes he can beat Trump because he did it before? Yeah. But do I also think it's very, very selfish and he's overlooking all of the potential downsides and negatives about how he's a worse candidate? Yes. Yes. So, I mean, that is a rosy picture to paint about Joe here.
Alone, and Chris Christie's not alone in saying that people aren't thrilled with the candidates. But the problem is, when he says a strong Democrat or someone, he doesn't name anyone.
Yeah,
and
there
I'm like,
aren't good names.
But there's no one
right on. You guys are right.
Because you have Vice President Harris, who doesn't have great approval ratings, Gavin Newsom, who's associated with the most liberal state in the country, and although he has a good political future, he needs to separate and have some recognition.
But the downsides of Kamala or Gavin at this point are just far less than those of Biden. Look, at the end of the day, the biggest thing that people are concerned with Joe Biden is his age. And he ain't getting any younger. And there's not enough uppers in the world to have him not fuck up sometimes in speech and say the wrong thing or, you know, just have his brain shit the bed mid-sentence. So, like, yes, is Kamala potentially a weak candidate? Sure. Is Pete Buttigieg potentially a weak candidate? Sure. Gavin Newsom? Sure. I'll grant you all of that. But everything is relative. Everything is comparative to is comparable to the other options. And I think their downsides at this late date are way less. And remember, this comes from the guy who maintained for a very long time, before Joe started backing a genocide in Israel, I maintained for a very long time that I think the downsides of a Kamala or a Pete are more than the downsides of a Joe Biden. Now I don't believe that anymore. So I don't know, man. I don't get it. I don't get in the same way that I'll never understand the over-the-top devotion and fawning love and support of Trump, no matter what he does. I'll never understand the similar dynamic for people like these View hosts about Joe Biden. It really is like, you know, Joe can do no wrong type stuff. It's this weird defensive support of him. That's like, you know, how dare you criticize? That's the vibe you get, and it is very Trumpian.
There isn't going to be another candidate. No.
Yeah.
The candidate is Joe Biden.
Yeah.
He
So
has
suck
run
it
this
up.
country well. He has so much to run on. He's got better economy. Inflation is down. Job growth, more job growth than any other president in the past couple of decades.
His infrastructure bill.
The infrastructure bill
created
Just
jobs.
one second. So he has a platform to run on. The Republicans have zero to run on.
Nothing.
And the best candidate that the Republicans could come up with is Donald Trump. So again, Republicans do not give Democrats advice.
Even if I grant them that point, a lot of the election, unfortunately, comes down to how do you get the normies? What about the optics? And both Trump and Biden have two massive downsides. Trump is 91 criminal charges and 4 indictments, and the fact that he's a psychopath, that's a big strike against him, and independents don't like him for that. But Biden's is, people think he's going to fucking die in like 2.5 minutes. And that's also kind of a big strike. I don't think those things are equal. I don't. But there are going to be millions of people who do, or if anything, think it's worse with Biden. And I don't know who it serves to try to disregard that reality. And by the way, they're bringing up, to be fair, they did bring up some policies here, like good things that Biden did. And there definitely are. Pulled out of Afghanistan, massively reduced the drone war. His NLRB has been phenomenal and very pro-union. I mean, there's a lot we can go through. 800,000 manufacturing jobs that were added. But of course, they're not bringing up any of the negatives. For example, the social safety net expansion that we got under the pandemic has now gone away. So people who felt like at the bottom, hey, we're doing okay economically, now they don't feel like that. The child tax credit went away. So people are really, really hurting. Biden is now supporting a genocide in Gaza. And the very important swing state of Michigan, he's now been abandoned by Arab American voters and Muslim American voters, and that could make him lose Michigan. That's a huge problem. He didn't get back in the Iran agreement. We're still cucked to Saudi Arabia. He's very conservative on the border. He did the Willow Project and more oil drilling. He said he ran on public option. He didn't even bring up a public option to vote on for healthcare. We didn't get $15 minimum wage nationally. We didn't get Build Back Better, which would have been a transformative piece of legislation that I supported massively. And instead, we got the IRA, which was very watered down. Like, don't pretend like it's nothing but good things for Biden and there are no downsides. And that's what I'm witnessing here. And I do sort of fear that people like this who are making these arguments, like, they might be shocked and stunned into silence on election night when it looks like Trump ends up winning, right? It's too early to say that for sure. We still got all these court cases to go through. But the fact of the matter is, if we don't get a conclusion on the criminal charges and the polls stay relatively similar where they are right now, Donald Trump's going to be president again. And these people will be like, oh, I can't believe it. Well, everybody was trying to warn you and you didn't want to hear it. You were coming up with half-baked arguments to try to act like, Biden can do no wrong. It really is the mirror image of the Trump people. I hate to say it, but it's true. I think ideologically the Biden people are way more reasonable than the Trump people. But this, weird insistence on not allowing any reasonable criticism is... it could be the death of them, man.
What Alyssa's bringing to this table is something you see all over them. People are talking about this. This isn't a fringe idea.
There was a Quinnipiac poll that just had Biden beating Trump.
Oh, my God. That is bullshit. Because what matters is the average of the polls. And in the average, Joe is down in the popular vote nationally by about 2 points. And remember, the Democrat historically, in modern American history, has had to win by at least 3 or 4 points in the national popular vote in order to win the Electoral College. So to bring, there was a poll that had Biden winning. Yeah, but 8 of the last 10 have Trump winning, and in the average, he's down, and you would need to win by 3 or 4 or more in order to actually win. So that is just such a bad point. Oh, it's such a bad point.
A poll that has him losing in every single battleground state by double digits to
the polls are meant to do exactly what they're doing. Here's the bottom line. They're going to decide. We're not going to decide. And as one of them, as an American, I remember what DT did to this country. I remember what he did. I remember how he made people feel. And I don't want that for anybody else. I don't want women feeling like that. I don't want men feeling like that. Yeah. So when you say there are a lot of people, there may be a lot of people. But I guarantee you, when those curtains open and the ballots are counted, then we can have a really good discussion. But it's not going to change. It is Joe Biden, and it is Joe Biden.
Okay, Whoopi, here's the issue. You just said, I remember what Trump did. I remember how people felt about it and all that. And all that's true. But what the numbers show right now is everybody does not remember that. They just don't. There's this old saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder. When George W. Bush left office, he had under 30% approval rating. He was viewed as one of the most historically horrific presidencies. I mean, it was subprime mortgage crisis, Great Recession, massive job loss, 2 illegal wars, torture, every negative thing you can imagine. Everybody hated this motherfucker. Fast forward a decade, a little more, all of a sudden, his approval rating is over 50%, including now liberals look at him and like him because they go, well, at least he's not Trump. So this idea of I remember how bad Trump was and how he made everybody feel and all that stuff. I remember that too. And I could list the policies that were disastrous for this country under Donald Trump. But the numbers show right now, people are not with us. They're not with us. They're just not. Trump has a lead in 6 of the 7 swing states, or 7 of the 7. He has a lead in those states. He's crushing Biden with independents. He's tied with Biden with young voters and Latinos. Those are 2 demographic groups that the Democrat needs to win by at least 20 points to really have a shot at victory. So I don't know what the rigid insistence is on not accepting any criticism of Joe Biden or any argument for another path. And by the way, if Biden actually does end up losing, you'll have people like Whoopi to thank for it. Because these are the kind of Democratic voters who show up and do vote in the primary, and they pick the guy who can't put a sentence together for reasons that are not rational or logically clear to anybody.
Who gave up the second term was LBJ.
Well,
I don't think any president has ever said, I'm not going to run the second term. So don't expect Biden to do that.
To underscore here, none of us want Donald Trump to be president again. It scares me, the idea of him being president again. I don't want us to be naive to how strong Donald Trump is. This man has 9 lives. People turn a blind eye to a lot of things.
You and Liz Cheney and all the rest of you never Trumpers.
To the public, if we pretend every day that Joe Biden is strong when every metric tells us that he's not performing well and he's less popular than Jimmy Carter, that's a problem.
The realities, however, are kids are paying less. Young people are paying less money out to school. I'm very happy about that. Listen,
young people can't buy homes in this economy. It's not Joe Biden's fault.
I'm sorry. When I started out, I couldn't buy a home either.
Me either.
You have to work your way. I'm sorry.
I was 50.
You know, that is not the first thing that happens when you come out. You got to go out and get a job. This is how you break it down. Y'all, I know you're young, but here's what it is. You work. And you can afford a house, and you go and get one. You're living in New York City. Can't nobody afford to live there.
Okay. See, the way that ended is the real terrifying part of this conversation, right? Because they're having a discussion about, hey, strategically, is it really the best for Biden to run against Trump? I think he's like the weakest against Trump, which I think is empirically correct, although most of the women on the View disagree. But the way the conversation ends is Whoopi smugly lecturing the younger View host and saying like, oh, you can't afford a house? Well, suck it up. You know, suck it up, work harder. Whoopi, you sound like a conservative Republican. This is the kind of like finger wagging and scolding that is never going to work to get people to support Joe Biden. It's just not going to work because the whole point is supposed to be, hey, you're the president. You're supposed to represent the American people. Well, represent us. Represent us. You know, we're having all these problems, all these issues. We don't feel like we've gotten sufficient support from the government. That's why his approval rating's at 33% in one poll. I think the average is like 37 or 38. That's in Jimmy Carter territory when it came to a year before his reelection. And of course, he lost. He got crushed. And like, this is the best you can muster up, is to just be like, shut up, it's going to be Biden. So not really addressing any of the substantive concerns. And then, like, oh, you're having problems as a citizen of this country? Well, I have problems too, bro. It took a long time for me to be able to get a house too, bro. So suck it up and deal with it and vote Biden. Look, I don't get it. Was there a time where it looked like Biden would easily beat Trump and get reelected? Yes. And I was the one leading the charge saying that. I was the one saying, I think Trump had a chance to lose the primary, especially after the midterms. All the Trumpy candidates got draxed in the election. Ron DeSantis crushed. He looked like the heir apparent. I thought DeSantis would make a good run at it in the primary. He didn't. And the polls that showed Biden would easily beat Trump again, now they flipped. And so it feels a lot more like 2016 now, where it's like, you know, everybody's acting like, all the other women on the panel except Alyssa are acting like, well, Trump can't really win again, right? And it's like, I don't know how much more evidence you need that he can. Look, I grant you that he's weak with independents also. He definitely is. I grant you that the 91 criminal charges could be a real serious problem for him. I grant you that for sure. But we don't even know if we're going to get an answer on those before the election. And if the polls stay like they are right now, even if Biden surges, it might not be enough. So, I don't know, man. Look, I do not want Trump to win. I don't. But let's not kid ourselves that the guy who's like 346 years old, who can't complete a sentence, who's also materially backing a genocide at this moment, let's not kill ourselves like, oh yeah, we're putting our best foot forward in this election. I mean, at least with any of the other Democrats that are potential corporate Democrats to replace Biden, at least they are not the ones leading the material support for a genocide at this very moment. You know, apparently Kamala behind the scenes, I don't know if you guys saw this story, Kamala behind the scenes was trying to get Biden to, in one of his statements about Israel and Gaza, she was trying to get him to, hey, you know, put a line in there about how anti-Arab hate and anti-Muslim hate is like, that's really bad too. Like, you needed your VP to tell you that? You needed your VP to tell you that? That in the midst of supporting a frickin' genocide in Gaza, don't just do the whole like, anti-Semitism is the worst thing. You know, you also got to say, hey, Don't hate Arabs and Muslims too. So she was providing some direction and pushback and guidance about how out of touch he is with the base on this issue. I'd take that all day, every day over what we got here with Biden. So I don't know. The way that conversation ended really gave the game away about the mindset and the mentality of Whoopi and all the other women on the panel, other than Alyssa Farah. They don't take seriously the idea that Trump could win. They don't take the polls seriously. And they think like, it's inevitable. We're going to get Biden. It's inevitable because people like you end up going to vote for Biden, even though you shouldn't, in the primary, right? It's inevitable. And if you have any criticisms or critiques, I don't want to hear it. Shut up. Shut up, work harder. It's like, I thought we were having a political discussion here about the best direction for the country and the best way to beat Trump. And all of a sudden you're getting a lecture on your life choices. And now you need to suck it up and work harder and expect less. And it's like, this mindset is not the kind of mindset that's going to lead to victory. And it is a terrifying thing to consider. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.